is the best game ever made to date, and it's not even released yet. About a third of the game is available in the early access build, and in my opinion, there is no other game even close to contending for the Game of the Year of 2023. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Consider your predicament.
Baldur's Gate 1 was my first role-playing game I ever played. My English skills were basic at the time, and my knowledge of this world that it was set in was also, well, basic. I was very much into fantasy, having been introduced to the genre by reading The Hobbit with my father, and I did fall in love with it, while also learning to read on my own, and then dive deep in with The Lord of the Rings. But I never had experience with this genre in games. I knew nothing about Dungeons & Dragons, its various rules and lore, but I was in love after the first few minutes. And I don't remember how old I was. I probably wasn't old enough though. Back then I never managed to finish that game, because it's not an easy game. As an adult I did go back later, and at least I got to the end. And ever since then, as a kid, RPGs, both digital and tabletop, have become a bit of a mainstay in my life. And it's been a while since I last walked the paths of the Sword Coast. So when Larian Studios finally got to make the long-awaited Baldur's Gate 3, I was very excited to see the franchise return. I jumped into the early access release on day one on Google Stadia, and I played it and streamed it as often as I could. And after Stadia's demise, I've moved on to the PC version through cloud gaming such as GeForce Now and Boosteroid. And from those very first steps on the Nautiloid, the first dialogue with an NPC, the first round of combat, I knew this was it. This was the worthy sequel that we honestly never thought we would see. Baldur's Gate 2 released in 2000. It took 20 years before we got to see the name return in a BRPG. The hype level among players, way bigger fans than me, was enormous. And for the vast majority of those fans, myself included, Larian has delivered. Because what is on display here is the best representation of a tabletop RPG in a digital space ever. It captures the very essence of playing around that table better than any other adaptation previously. But it manages to do so without compromising the digital RPG roots that it actually is. It doesn't feel clunky at the slightest. It's deep, strategic, fluid, and fun. The early access is nearing a close with a full release planned for August 31st, 2023, and what blows me away is the fact that even though the early access is limited to only parts of the first act out of a planned 3 acts, you can easily spend hundreds of hours in here. Even without the rest of the game, it is already the best game ever made to date in my opinion. But with all that out of the way, stay a while and listen. Gather your party and let's dive deeper into why.
She pulled me to the side, said, "Come, for I want more." But as I tuned my violin, she shook her head and she said no. Then came the wildest night of my life. Didn't care, she was a lord's wife.
If it is the decades of lore it's built upon, the incredible talent of the narrative team, or a mix thereof, the writing of Baldur's Gate 3 is impeccable. From the introductory cinematic, to the first dialogues, the first lore blurb on the character creator, the sheer scale and amount of different branching narratives, this game is written and performed to perfection. The narrative beats are tuned perfectly, and the characters that we meet are memorable. The world around us oozes with the same love, care, and excitement that I experience around my group's table. Apart from the occasional bark in combat and while ordered around, your character is silent, so you have plenty of chances to make up your own voice. And I know this isn't everyone's cup of tea or everything, but I feel it helps with the immersion here and fits well into the tabletop RPG roots. The various characters and potential companions inhabiting the world are fully voiced on the other hand, with great performances all around, especially the companions, who are lead characters in their own right. And that's not just because you will be able to play the game from their viewpoint when the game is fully launched. Anyway, the dialogue choices are plenty. They're well written, and for the most part they allow for most character archetypes to be role-played, and a staggering amount of them also contain options specific to certain races, skill levels, or classes that can greatly affect the outcome of an encounter. To take just one early example encounter, I've seen different paths to this point. Some of them completely bypassing one in combat encounter, depending on your race and class. As a druid, the ways of the druid grove were known to me, and as a wood elf, I had knowledge of other customs that benefited me in that situation. These sort of things are not just a rare gimmick either. The game is littered with them, and I love it. And speaking of combat encounters, their turn-based nature may not be for everyone, but it is an approachable approach, and well, it does its thing well. Every move counts. Every action is one that is best thought out well. I've lost a few encounters and not once have I felt it was undeserved. Every time I've been able to look back and see where I took the wrong plan and just went along with it. Combat is, in other words, strategic, satisfying, and well balanced. Each character takes turns to move a certain distance and perform an action and a bonus action. You can do this in any order you want, and each class has a big mix of possibilities. You can also pick up most items you find in the game and use as makeshift weapons, which is just amazing. In one combat encounter I played in probably my first playthrough, I used a wizard to cast the spell Grease on the ground in a hallway separating me from some bandits or looters or whatever it was. This means any character walking on that grease runs the risk of falling over. My next assumption was that, isn't grease flammable? So I threw a torch on the grease. On top of it being slippery, it was now also on fire. And I then fired arrows from my bow and crossbow equipped characters through the flames and into the enemies. This resulted in them being hit with flaming arrows dealing extra damage. And it was so satisfying. And this sort of interactability is something that I used to from playing tabletop RPGs with my friends, but in video games, not at all. But I'm loving it. I've played tabletop RPGs with my friends for over a decade at this point, and bringing that experience into a digital space, it's nothing short of amazing. Reality is, Larian Studios have taken a tried and true version of tabletop RPGs in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and made a seamless digital adaptation that is just plain fun to play. And while I personally prefer less skill and combat heavy rule sets like Burning Wheel, Forbidden Lands or Mutant Year Zero, D&D just works great in a digital space, where so much of that technical legwork and how everything works can just be done automatically in the background. I recall reading somewhere that something like 90% of the content that will be in the fully released game will never be seen by more than a few percent of players. Now that is the scale of Baldur's Gate 3. A single playthrough of the game's first act will likely take you about 20 hours. And even then, every branching story and different outcome that you could experience and didn't is something you can go back and play again. Baldur's Gate 3 is a marvelous achievement in terms of writing, scale, voice acting, gameplay, and so many other details. To me, what really brings it home is the essence of tabletop RPGs which Larian has captured beautifully. When the full game is released in August, I will have enough gaming time ahead of me to last me years. There's nothing quite like it, and it is a game you do not want to miss. The first act is available now in early access on PC and cloud platforms such as Boostroid and GeForce Now, and on full release the game will also come to PlayStation 5. An Xbox version is in the works, but I have no confirmation yet if it will be released on the same day, apparently due to some trouble getting the optimization on the Series S to run at the same level as expected. And even in this unfinished state, Baldur's Gate 3 is, in my eyes, the best game of all time. It is not yet, however, my favorite. That title still belongs to Guild Wars 1. But who knows, maybe even that can be toppled. And if you want to know more about what makes Guild Wars 1 so special, well, I have a video about that. And another one about the sequel Guild Wars 2 that you also don't want to miss. Yeah, please subscribe to the channel, because I do intend to stream Baldur's Gate 3 a lot more in the future, along with the regular first looks of big titles and small titles alike. And I would love to see you there with me. And don't forget to tune into my podcast Rock Players, which is a show about video game news specifically in the cloud space, and Hear Me Out, a video game music show. But yeah, until next time, I'm gonna play some more Baldur's Gate Early Access.